Spirit Radio Podcasts.
Our next guests have been married for 43 years, but it has not been all plain sailing. In fact, at 20 years, their relationship seems to be going nowhere. Like, as they describe, two train tracks that never get any closer. It could easily all have come apart at that stage, but a recommendation from a friend about a marriage program called Retrouvaille became a lifeline that they reluctantly decided to grab hold of. In studio now to tell us more, we have Pat and Susan Keenan. You are both very welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks
very much, Rowan. Thank you.
First of all, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you met?
Well,
I was working in an art shop in Grafton Street, and Pat was working in Switzer's in the window display department.
Brilliant. Up the road from each other.
Yeah, and he needed some posters in the art shop across the road, so he came over and got some, and then he needed hangers, so I brought them across the road to him. And that's how we met.
It kicked off.
Well, the lucky thing was, a few days later, it was my birthday. I was 20.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So a friend of mine was throwing a party, and I was not the best catch you believe me, because
I don't believe
I was one of those hippie sort of guys. But I went over to Susan and asked her if she'd come to the party with me that night. And
wow.
she said
I said yes.
I was so surprised.
Wow, fantastic. So how were the early years of marriage?
They were pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, we lived in Kilcool and Wicklow, and we worked in Dublin, and you know, just buses and trains, and then our first daughter Kate came along, and I gave up work because I thought there's no point in farming her out to be minded, because I'd only be working to pay the miners.
Sure. Yeah.
So and then our second daughter Amy came along, and all was pretty good. And then our son came along, and things began to wane after that, you know.
Yeah, but a couple of different things happened at that time.
Yeah.
I had a business, and that went into liquidation, if you like.
Oh, wow.
And trying to support a family on very minimum wage, if you like, was not
a lot
helpful.
of stress, yeah.
Plus, unfortunately, at that stage, by the time we were 7 or 8 years married, we were not really communicating on a feeling level at all.
No. Okay.
We were getting on with the business of marriage, and that was about it.
And rearing the children.
Yes,
you know.
yeah. It's funny, isn't it, when you have that? There's such an intense demand on you. You know, and they're wonderful, and and it's meaningful work and all the rest. But it's such an intense demand. You can really relegate your relationship, can't you?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, yes.
I'll get to it. You know.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened.
Yeah, it's so easy for the husband and wife to forget about each other, or leave so little time for each other.
That's right.
I mean, they're doing good by looking after their kids, but they do even better by looking after each other.
Yeah.
And I totally take your point. It's almost like you forget that actually by making each other the first priority and not the kids, you're actually helping the kids.
Yeah,
yes, that's right.
It's weird, isn't it? You know, but it's true. So were there specific difficulties, do you think, that led you so close to breaking up, or do you think it was more of that kind of snowballing of various other things?
Yeah, it was just a lack of communication.
Really,
like there was nothing major. There wasn't any.
You couldn't point to like a crisis of a particular client. Yeah,
but it's like, I guess it's like all these veils going over your love.
Yeah,
and in the end, you don't see it, you know. And then I would come home from the work where I wasn't happy, and probably take out a lot of stuff on Susan that wasn't fair either. You know, she was doing her best looking after the kids, and I guess in some ways I was resentful because she had a very strong input into our family, and I was losing that as well, you know, as a father.
Susan, how did you feel at this point? What were your expectations of the future?
Well, I think my kind of thing on life is, you know, whatever happens, just soldier on.
Yeah.
And so I just soldiered on.
Yeah. Kind of just get the head down and just keep going forward.
Yeah. And then things soldiered on, and we just became further apart. And I just kept going and rearing the children, because they were my focus, I think, at the time, because like they had to be looked after and fed and clothed and give them things to do so they weren't hanging around corners and stuff, you know. I think the further I went along, I became more lonely, you know, because it just didn't seem that there was nothing, you know, we were just robots, like, you know.
That loneliness thing rings a bell with you too, Pat.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, I only saw it in myself. I never saw it in Susan.
Yeah.
I could not see it, and it wasn't really until we attended our Retrouvaille weekend where we had a chance to really explore each other's.
So how did that happen? I mean, how did you even hear about Retrouvaille? Because I would have heard about it around 1997, 98, somewhere around that time, and it was like completely out of the blue. Never knew about it, never heard about it. It came from Canada or somewhere, was it?
Yeah, it started in Quebec, in Canada.
Quebec, yeah.
So it was, and that's why it's Retrouvaille.
Yeah, the French name,
French name for rediscovery.
Rediscovery,
Yeah, sure,
or
absolutely.
the French have it as bringing together again. So
Okay,
bringing
lovely.
two souls together.
That's lovely. So how did you hear?
A friend of ours, who was probably the only friend that we had who actually knew our situation, because again, we would be very private about the difficulties we had, like most people, and so all our neighbours wouldn't have a clue. Our family had no clue that we were going through any sort of
struggling.
difficulties.
Yeah.
Because we wore a mask and we were all looking pretty okay. Who would know?
And the kids were okay. They weren't.
Yeah.
And we didn't want anyone to know that we were, failing somewhat, in our
course,
marriage, So, anyhow, this one friend, she must have phoned me at least 6 or 7 or 8 times, and she had just heard about Retrouvaille. She'd gone to a church somewhere, and it was the very first time coming to Ireland.
Wow.
So we were
You were the first group.
Absolutely, so lucky with that.
We were the guinea pigs.
Exactly. But she phoned me and she said, "I've heard of this Retrouvaille. I think it's something that would really help you and your wife and your family. In fact, everybody would
everybody would benefit."
Yes.
So I'm just wondering, how did you respond at that point? Did you resist? Did you go maybe, and how did you kind of work it out between the two of you?
Well, I just thought, like, God he's sending us a lifeline.
Okay.
We have to grab it.
Yeah.
I jumped at the chance. Whereas Pat was humming and hawing and as is his way with things, and he resisted a bit.
Yeah. Well, that's why she had to phone me 6 or 7 times, because each time she says, "Have you signed up yet? Have you?" And she'd speak to me for an hour each.
Wow.
I just can't get over the love that woman had.
Yeah, just to press in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So can you describe you turning up and what the weekend was like?
Yes, we can. It was, I suppose, like most people, we had no idea what was ahead of us.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
So we arrived very apprehensive. We didn't have any clue of what was going to happen. But in some ways, we had made a decision that this was something we had to do.
And it was something good.
Yeah, we couldn't
Only
just
good
keep
was
on
going to
going.
come out of this.
Yeah, we couldn't just keep on going as we were up to this stage, because we had... we would definitely have been divorced if I had good finances at the time, because we were just in that humdrum sort of
we were
marriage.
caught between a rock and a hard place.
But that kind of kept you there, that feeling of we've got to come up with something here, something. Yeah.
It did, yes, for definitely.
So the format, there's a lot of kind of is it kind of a lot of speaking from the front? Is there a lot of interaction between the two of you? What way does it work?
Well, the great thing is that the couples who are presenting the program don't need to know anything of what's actually happening in your own relationship.
Right, they keep that to themselves.
Completely confidential. In fact, we don't want to know.
Yeah.
Because the couples themselves, in a way, they counsel each other over the weekend. We give there's a presentation, and after that there's some time for what we call dialogue.
Yeah.
And during the dialogue, some of the subjects that have come up in the presentation will be aired out or teased out. And then the couple are given a certain amount of time to talk to each other about it and
say how they feel.
And this goes on during the weekend. The marvellous thing is, this might be the first time in years, as it was with Susan and myself, that we actually sat down and spent a whole weekend looking at each other, not necessarily looking at where we went wrong, but maybe looking at where we could go better.
Wow.
So
even that is a really good kind of emphasis, isn't it? Because if you go into the regrets and the stuff, that can be it can be quite negative, but that's really powerful, isn't it?
Really.
But also, it doesn't matter what the problem is between the couples.
Yeah.
The answer is the same.
Yeah.
It's about communication and knowing how the other person feels.
So can I just ask you, I'm sorry, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, so presumably that weekend started some sort of a ball rolling for you. At what point did you notice? Because I know that there's things that you have to do then when you go home, and there's homework and all that kind of stuff. Yes. At what point did you feel the tide begin to turn for your relationship?
Well, I would say by the Saturday evening. So this is 24 hours, less than 24 hours after we had started the programme. We forgave ourselves.
Yes.
We forgave each other first of all.
Wow.
And we forgave ourselves for being not the person we could have been, in marriage.
So within 24 hours, things had started to change already.
Yeah.
That's wild.
No, it started. The forgiveness started then.
Yeah.
And then the next day, and we actually left on Sunday afternoon about 5, and there was a lightness about us. The weight had lifted from our shoulders.
So did you leave with some hope?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yes,
we did. Yeah.
And the amazing thing, Ronan, was that our kids could see it straight away.
Wow.
When we arrived home and were given work to do during that week, and the children made sure the phone was off.
Wow.
Because back then that was back in 96.
So before mobile phones. And they would just give us that time to do our little dialogue every night until we attended the first post session.
Fantastic. So clearly this had such an impact on you. You are now giving those retreats yourself.
Well, almost immediately.
Well,
really?
Yeah, because there was.
I suppose there was just you guys,
one from Canada who came over to present our weekend, and a priest from Detroit, Father Sill.
Father Sill. I remember Father Martin Tierney being involved.
Martin Tierney,
He totally
he was brilliant.
Marvelous man.
So good.
So they, of course, had to go back to the States and Canada.
So they left you in charge?
What?
They left you in charge?
Well, they left Father Martin in charge to round us up.
Yeah,
and,
so that's brilliant.
Kind of, said, well, it's you have to do it, basically. So we said, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So then we started writing the talks about, what happened to us, when we met, marriage, when we got into difficulties and how we got out of it and how we came to Retrouvaille.
Now, look, all I can say is just adding in from my own perspective, like I work as a therapist, as many will know, but this is extraordinary. Like Retrouvaille is an extraordinary thing. I do a little bit of couples work with my wife, and we give it to people. But honestly, Retrouvaille is extraordinary, and I have seen massive turnarounds in people that I thought were hopeless. Honestly, it is amazing, and I just couldn't support it. And if there's people out there listening, well, can I just ask you, put this over to you, if there's people out there listening and they're thinking, gosh, that sounds like we could really benefit from that, what would you say to them?
Well, we give them a guarantee.
Okay.
Well, seriously, no. My own thoughts on this is that if both partners in a marriage want their marriage to succeed, so both of them have to be positive about wanting to do it. If they do the full programme, if they do all the work we tell them, I would give them a 100% guarantee that they're going to get it.
Even if they feel like their marriage is a complete shambles,
it doesn't
but they both want it to work.
Because we've had couples on weekends who have actually been separated. And, through working with Retrouvaille, they have got back together again.
I remember actually it was the first time I ever encountered that thing of having a marriage or a weekend and not insisting that couples shared space, that they could actually have separate rooms and that kind of thing, which is like really realistic. I thought, the idea of going, look, if you're not able to be in the same space, and that kind of, it's so real, that's really good. So I know you've got an upcoming weekend. We're not giving any details of where it is because we don't want people just walking up, because there aren't walk-ups, and that's what Dublin, that's 4th to the 6th of October, is that right?
In Dublin, yes.
Yeah, so is there any space left on it?
There is, yes, indeed.
There is.
Okay, so tell us, how can they get in touch with you?
I guess the best thing is to go online, and it's www.retrouvaille.ie.
Spell it.
RETROUVAILLE. And the one thing I'll say just at this point is that the couples are given a safe space to explore their relationship. It really is not just a safe space, but a sacred space, I would call it. It's amazing. I'll just give you an example. On the Saturday evening, we ask people if they wish to share on something. It's just a one-line share, that's all. And I remember one weekend, this lady stood up and she said, For the past 10 years, I've blamed him for everything. Tonight, I'm taking responsibility for my difficulties in this marriage.
Yeah, okay.
You know, and that's a wonderful thing.
Says a lot. Says a lot.
You know, and miracles do take place.
It really does. Yeah. That's extraordinary. Pat and Susan Keegan, thank you so much for talking to us this morning.
Thanks for listening to our Spirit Radio podcast. Don't miss out. Subscribe today. Find out how at spiritradio.ie.